critiques. So if you all want to send your portfolio links in the chat, we'll go over some of them in the end. And we'll jump into like a little mini workshop. So yeah, feel free to post your portfolio links in the chat. But kind of jumping into, can you even build a perfect portfolio? And the answer is you can't. There's no such thing as a perfect portfolio. It's an iterative process, kind of like the whole design process. You have to prototype, test, and refine to infinity. Like every new job you get, you have to keep updating it. Every new project, you have to update it. And with that, you're going to have this drive to continuously update the vibe. You're like, oh, I'm a better visual designer now. Maybe I need to update my portfolio. So always think about like, what's the MVP portfolio that you need to get out there? So don't worry if you are not happy with it right now. It's good enough for you to get a job. So this is kind of how you say my name. If you want to try, it's Gre, as in you're gripping something, and then Shah, as in Shah. So Gresshaa. And all my socials are just my first name. So if you want to find me on LinkedIn or ADP list, feel free to hit me up. Happy to help you out in your job search process. So today we're going to cover the core of a good portfolio, telling a compelling story, crafting your personal brand, talking about design thinking applied to your portfolio life, and then a few tips and tricks. So if you have no idea what a portfolio is, that's totally fine. It's basically a body of work that represents your skills as a designer, engineer, marketer, any creative job you have. You want to visually showcase your work, and you want to showcase your best projects so that you can entice your potential employees or potential clients that you want to hire. They come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. So we're going to go over a few examples. So you could have something for UX design, product design, interaction design, where you're kind of showcasing your web and mobile projects. You're showcasing your design skills just by how this website is designed. Like people are going to be evaluating your skills just by the layout, visual hierarchy, what mockups you're showing, and more. If you're doing animation or motion design, I can see the level of design skills without having to click into a project. So this is a super interactive website. Like everything here was moving, it was interactive, and they are addressing client needs directly by saying, let your brand stand out by hiring me, or how can I help you? And everything is highlighting their skills. Similarly, with mixed reality, AR and VR, you use GIFs of videos to showcase your work because it's kind of difficult to capture this in a still image. So if you're always wondering about how do I showcase my work, if it's multimedia, there's always ways around it. Similarly, for 3D design and illustration, your portfolio template should depend on your expertise. Designers who create a lot of visuals will use most of the website real estate to showcase their art. But if you're more of a researcher in academia, you can still have a very visually appealing portfolio that's easy to skim for people. It uses good visual hierarchy. And I'm really emphasizing the visual design in this a lot because people are judging you the moment they see your resume, they see your portfolio. So you really want to make a really good first impression because recruiters and hiring managers just don't have the time. Even for developers, like technical jobs like data science and engineering, they do require visual representation of their work. So you could totally just take a screenshot of what you created and add it in. So it's really easy for a recruiter who's not technical to kind of see and skim your skills. So how do you go about even building this amazing portfolio? At the core of it is a really good story. So I think a few weeks ago, Melissa Ewing from your department organized a storytelling workshop. So if you're ever curious about curating your own personal story, you should just ask her. And like she personally helped, I forget who it was, but it was someone in the first year master's department program. She helped him curate his whole end-to-end story. He started off with a totally bland story, in her words, in the beginning of the quarter, and she helped him curate it throughout. So if you're ever wondering about how to curate your own personal story, definitely use resources in the department. But yeah, let's cover the basics. If you've been in 301, you've kind of seen these slides, but does anyone know this character? Like, what is this egg's story? Feel free to like throw it in the chat or unmute. And this is not a hard question, not a trick question. But yeah, what's the story of this egg? Yeah, it's a lazy egg. So they made a whole story around an egg. Like they gave him a personality. There's a movie coming out of Gudetama. It's this lazy egg that's personable. So like I can relate to an egg. So if an egg can have a story, so can you. So if you think your life is boring, if you're like, hey, this egg has a story. What about these glasses? Like, what's these glasses' story? They're Warby Parker. So for Warby Parker, their main value proposition is that they are super customizable. They want you to try out your personal glasses. They'll send you a box to try and then say you can try on whatever you want. You don't even have to buy it. So they're kind of going in the story of customizability, the customer care. So you can make a story around literally anything. Like you can make a story about like a pen, glasses, an egg. Similarly for these sandals, like they are objectively not good looking, but the story around them made them so popular that everyone is wearing them now. Like Crocs have like stuff you can put on them, like you can put a speaker on them, you can put a disco ball. Like think about the story that you can create considering like sandals have a story, you know? And it's so powerful, like the multi-billion-dollar market based off of shoes that are objectively bad looking. What about this fridge? What's this fridge's story? It's wild. They said, if you don't buy this fridge, you don't care about your family. So you're basically trying to figure out like what will motivate people to hire you? Like what's the story that's compelling enough to get them to get you on a call? So you're always trying to figure out like what is the other person's motivation and then try to tap into that by curating your story around it. So like each job or interview you get, you're going to want to curate your story based on what they're asking of you. So in terms of your personal brand, your different artifacts are going to be telling your story. So your resume tells a certain story, your portfolio, and then you in your interviews are going to be telling a different story. So what does it even mean to tell a good story? So storytellers in society open up worlds of possibility through words and imagery. They allow us to connect to their journey and expand our own understanding of the world around us. They allow our minds to explore and help us build images. Like this is really, really powerful. Like if an egg and a fridge can have a story and can make you personally connected to them, I'm 100% sure everyone here can make a really compelling story to get a recruiter to get them on a call. So in business, you're going to be using storytelling a lot. Like no matter what field you're into, you're going to need to learn how to tell a compelling story, whether that be a story about an idea you had for the business or a story about your career to answer the tell me about yourself interview question. Similarly, in design and engineering, you're going to be constantly telling stories, like stories about your users, that what are their needs, what are their challenges, what are their motivations, and you're going to have to make these stories relatable to which audience you're talking to. Like most recruiters, they are not designers. So how do you curate a story for them? And then for hiring managers, they want a higher level view of everything. You're going to be telling stories about your design decisions. Like, how did you arrive to this? Why should we, as a recruiting team, care about what you did? Stories about your product, and then most importantly, stories about you. Key to any story is this bell curve where I kind of like to think of it as a rubber band where you're pulling the tension up and then bringing it back down. So you can kind of think of this as the elastic where I'm kind of pulling it up to build the climax of the story and then bringing it down. So you can apply this framework to like a Pixar movie where we're going up over here, let's say, or let's talk about Disney, where in the beginning, in Lion King, you're kind of setting up the plot, like who are these lions? Why should we care about them? The rising action is when Mufasa dies, spoiler alert. And then the climax is like Simba trying to find his groove. And then it comes back down to Simba taking over Pride Rock again. So you can apply this framework to your case studies, portfolios, and your interviews. And every story has this basic framework. Once upon a time, there was a product, and every day this product is this. One day, this product is this because of that, and then until finally. And this kind of framework is used by Pixar a lot, and there's this really nice Khan Academy course called Pixar for Storytellers or Storytellers Told by Pixar Animators. So I definitely recommend checking that out. They have really nice videos about how to use visuals to tell a story as well. So it's very relevant to our career. So basically, once you've got the structure of the story, you have to work on the purpose of the story. Like, why are you telling the story? What's the belief burning within you that your story feeds off of? Like, what's the greater purpose of this story? And what does it teach me as a recruiter? So how can we apply this to case studies? So in the beginning, middle, and end, you kind of break it up by step. We're kind of building up the climax of your case study where you're building up the plot. You're telling me about your users. What's the business challenge? What's the goal of this project? Kind of maybe tell me what your success metrics are. Who was the target user? And you're kind of building up to the middle where you talk about the process, talk about insights that are super interesting or something unexpected that I'm like, oh my God, this is such a cool finding that the student had. And then towards the end, you talk about the resolution, any impact you had, and outcomes. And you can apply this particular framework to anything that you're doing. So it comes down to this funnel called ADA, attention, interest, desire, and action, where the first A, you're trying to hook people and grab their attention. And sometimes you can do this with a statistic to say, let's say one project I did was over COVID, where we were helping kids be more creative. And we found this crazy metric that said 85% of single parents who were with their kids in the first 2 weeks of COVID had physically hit their child in this certain region. And then that kind of grabbed people in. And then you grab their interest by saying, here are some of the explorations that we did. And then you grab their desire by saying, these are all the different markups we made. And then finally to the action to be like, this was the success metric, this was the impact. And you can apply this to literally anything. Even let's say you're going on a date, you can apply ADA to grab people's attention, grab their interest, set up the desire to go home, and then get to the final step. So let's talk about crafting your story. So you can comprise of a lot of different things. It can be a combination of your background, your goals, what are your passions, interests, skills. So for instance, I've been going through the recruiting process right now myself for like senior design positions. And in the beginning, everyone wants to know a little bit about you in the portfolio presentation. And the first few slides I have about like my design journey. And one of them is literally a slide of word art talking about this was my first design tool, how passionate I was about using PowerPoint. So like you have to figure out how do you grab people's interest by like a funny story or something from your past. So there's a lot of different things that could comprise of your story. So think about the language you're using to describe yourself, because interviewers have never met you before. So you're going to give them the language that they're going to use internally to talk about you. So be very intentional about how you're talking about yourself. Like what words are you using to describe yourself? What types of words are you using to describe your projects? What action words are you using on your resume? And basically the perfect designer is kind of the combination of design skills and in communication skills. So if you can't really talk about yourself or your work, your design skills aren't really gonna shine for themselves. And you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of different resources out there. So for action words, there's this really cool resource. If you Google Berkeley Career Resume and Cover Letters PDF, you'll find this. They have different templates you can use, but this particular page is for the action words, but you can kind of just pull these action words, use them wherever you want, but it gives people a language to talk about you because they're not going to be adding in those words. They're just going off of what you're telling them. So how are you communicating your story via resume, portfolio, and social channels? Like, can I look at them individually and or together and clearly tell what your story is? Like, can I put them all together and say, oh yeah, this is Ashley's story, or like, this is all Ashley's brand. And what you need to also communicate, like what your clear value proposition is. So for me, I'm like, I'm really good at interaction design and accessibility, and that's why you should hire me. Or like, what are the key things that people should focus on? So here's an example of a really well done case study, like really well done portfolio. They're showcasing their design skills right off the bat. So this is kind of the homepage where I can clearly see their work. Like I don't even need to click into anything to tell that, oh, they have mobile experience, they have web experience. And then similarly on LinkedIn, some people like to add a banner where they're talking about what they did. This person, they use their featured posts to kind of highlight why I should hire them as a designer. For this one, they use a strategic use of language. So rather than saying, hey, I worked at Google doing design, that doesn't give me a lot of information. As a recruiter, I want to know like specific things which you worked on as a hiring manager. So let's say I'm applying for a growth position that's looking for onboarding and engagement. So I'd say, oh yeah, my first project is creating an onboarding flow for Good Humans, which I'm assuming is a startup. So be a little more intentional about how you're showcasing it. And then again, over here, they're using big thumbnails to say, hey, you don't even need to click into my project to tell that I can create good work. And if your strength is storytelling, like this person used their about page to tell a story about their career. So this is kind of an interactive website. But as I scroll down, this line kept populating and more information about their life kept popping up. So you can be intentional with storytelling in your visual style as well. And always think about answering the question about like, why should I, as a recruiter or hiring manager, care that you did this? So like your case study about a ride sharing app is cool, but why should I care that you did this? Like you did something, like, so what? Like what was the impact? Why should this business care that you did that? And once you start answering those questions, you'll understand what to highlight in your portfolio, because you'll understand like, this is what the recruiter wants, and this is what I can provide. Let me make that more obvious. So you can approach portfolio design as a design thinking problem. So everyone here is probably familiar with the design thinking process, where you start from the users and you kind of iterate with them. So you start asking like, who are the users of your recruiting process? Like, what are their needs? How can you ease those like pain points that they have? How can you make their life easier? So your end users of your portfolio product are recruiters, hiring managers, and maybe clients if you're doing freelance work. The pain points that they have is that they're tired, they have no time in the day, they're overworked, they might not even have expertise in your line of work. Like most recruiters who are talking to you don't know a thing about design, but they're going off of what's on the job description. And they need to go through like hundreds of applicants. And this is literally how fast they're scrolling through your portfolio and resume. So you need to make sure that your value proposition is super, super clear. And your job is to make their job easier, like help them get a gist of your work as soon as they open your portfolio. And you can do that by having curated projects, minimal clicks, like show them your value prop without even letting them click something. Make it super skimmable, make it shareable. This is really key. And showcase your design skills by how well the portfolio is designed, not by just the portfolio contents, like the project's contents. So it's kind of an example of how a conversation might go, where you say, hey, recruiter, would you mind reading this detailed case study about 5 unrelated projects? And they're probably not going to be interested. So if you kind of approach it as a design thinking problem, it might make more sense to you as designers. So now we know who our users are, let's do some research. So I pulled up some really nice examples. So I'm going to just share another screen. Share. Can you see these case studies? Okay, cool. So this person, like this is the, like, let me just, yeah, this is their homepage. Like I don't even need to scroll to see that they have good visual design. They're highlighting their projects like this. They have really nice scroll animations. So even just like scrolling through here, I can quickly skim and see, okay, they have a ton of mobile design experience. They have some web experience. They're clearly amazing at interaction design. And then I'll be like, yeah, I want to get them on a call. Like your portfolio should just communicate that without having me as a recruiter click into anything even. Similarly for this one, I can scroll through. And then for this one, I wanted to highlight this element on the page that they had. Let me refresh. They also had a really smooth scrolling animation here, loading animation. So this is like a nice to have in your portfolios, but the idea is that you want to communicate your skills right off the bat. And they're doing this by having this show reel of all their projects. They're kind of showcasing that, hey, I can use After Effects, or I can do web design, I can do interaction design. So again, kind of really emphasizing the point that I want to be able to skim it really, really quickly. And you want to make sure that I'm not like straining my eyes to see your work. Like a big pain point I've seen with student portfolios is that they'll make their mockups like super, super small, or they'll use some perspective mockups where the iPhone's kind of like set up sideways. And I'm like, I have no clue what you did. Like I know what an iPhone looks like, but I want to see what your mockups look like. Let's go to the next one. So this is an example of how you can optimize your case study. So that is super skimmable. So even though you want to use, let's say you want to use a lot of text, like you can still make it skimmable while covering like a lot of easy content. So this person, they were talking about the Robinhood NFT marketplace. So they communicate what their role is very, very clearly. They go over what the product was, go over what the potential solution is. And then they have these cards like this that help me to skim what's happening. And this is like how quickly a recruiter might be skimming through this. So you want to make sure it's like visually appealing. Some stuff I want to call out at the bottom. Yeah. So like stuff like this, they have like key insights listed in, this looks like a marketing campaign to me. So I can clearly tell that they have really good visual design just by looking at that. And then when I get to the actual screens, they call out what specifically on this screen is important, what they did, or like what specifically, or how is it impacting the business. And stuff like this is what you should be thinking about. It's like, how can you make this skimmable? And like, how can you show them that your work has meaning? For this person, they wanted to highlight the AR, VR, and MR interactions. So rather than making me as a recruiter click in and then click a video to kind of see what's happening, they added this like auto playing or loop video where I can just scroll and see, okay, they clearly have AR and VR experience just by scrolling through the homepage. Similarly over here, super interactive, very clear that they've done a lot of projects in this. So yeah, always think about how you can make your recruiter's life easier. This one is a really good example of how you can showcase your mockups if it's like multi-flow on the homepage. So using interaction wherever you can is going to really set you apart because not a lot of people use it. And if you're applying for an intern position, this would really help you stand out because interaction design is a very useful skill. And they're using it kind of everywhere to kind of communicate what they did. Any questions about these particular examples? I can kind of send these links later.
I think there's a couple questions in the chat. One of them came from me, but yeah, I guess like my question was like, what do you recommend for someone you mentioned, getting kind of quick to the point on the homepage of showing your skills and experiences off the bat, but if you're having experience through internships but not allowed to show it because of confidentiality reasons, how would you kind of go about like still showing your skills without designs that you own?
Yeah. I bet you worked on like some projects where you can just show your visual design skills. So maybe you can have something like this, kind of like a show reel up top, or let's say, rather than wasting this space, you have some rotating images that kind of tell me that you have experience working on web and mobile projects or whatever job you're applying for. Like utilize this space for that. And then when you kind of get to, I think this person did it. Yeah, so this person, they can't really share what they did at Meta, but I can clearly tell like, okay, they have all this other work that can show for the kind of job I'm hiring them for. Like this is just kind of a name on the resume if they can't really show me what the job was or like what the work was. So you can kind of use other parts of your portfolio to highlight your work. Another thing I've seen people do is kind of list out all the different roles that they did and then highlight specific projects or like specific screens, maybe on the homepage. And honestly, like I've definitely just seen people add a password on it. And that helps a lot if in case you're like worried about NDA breach or anything like that. And most likely you're not going to get a lawsuit if you do show it. But as long as it's not, if it's been implemented, you can totally show it. But if it's not been implemented, you might want to password protect it or do something like this. But the key is like highlight your visual design skills on the homepage. Like you can use other projects to kind of show me that. Like let's say like you use this part of it. What portfolio website? We do cover portfolio websites a little later, so I might just skip ahead to that. Stop. And then let me reshare the presentation. Okay. So yeah, so in terms of which platforms to use, there are a ton of different ones to choose from. You could use Editor X. They have a lot of cool templates that are like customizable and specific for designers. ReadyMag is the same. They have really cool templates. And if you're really into experimenting with scroll animations, ReadyMag is like a blank canvas for you to play around with. Webflow is a little more advanced, where you might want to have like developer experience before using Webflow, but it is free for students, so that's something to consider. Squarespace and Wix, I wouldn't personally recommend because it's not as customizable as the other ones that are coming out. Semplice is something I've heard people use. It's similar to Editor X, but you might want to be a little worried about the price. But the one I would 100% recommend is Framer. They have a Figma to Framer plugin. So you can just make your whole portfolio in Figma and then just use the plugin, and it basically copy pastes it into Framer, and then you hit publish, and that's it. And then you can like obviously customize it to make it mobile responsive and then add interactivity to it. But I'd 100% recommend Framer because you can use their free version to do a free Framer website. And like even UX.UW, your website is on Framer. So I'm sure you guys are familiar using it. Any questions about like which platform to use? I saw some questions about that right earlier. Most of them have like a student discount version. So if you're ever worried about the price, definitely take advantage of the fact that you're a student. And worst case, like you pay until you get a job, and then you don't need the portfolio anymore. But yeah, Framer, I would definitely recommend. They have really nice animations available. You might need to put in some effort into making it mobile responsive, but that's about it. I've never used Cargo before, but you just have to figure out what you wanna, what works best for you. I don't think recruiters care that you're like coding it yourself. So if there's a free template or anything, go for it. Okay, let's do some live critique. Let me open this file. Oops. Actually,
there's one in the chat. If you look a little bit up.
I think that's like a personal like desktop file. I don't know if I can open that.
We can always, I'll drop mine in the chat and we can start there. And then everyone else, feel free to just drop in your portfolio for some live critique. Definitely a great way. Oh, you can also do, I think they said they're fixing it, so you can choose to start there or come back to that one as well.
Okay, let's open the chat. Yes. Okay, wow, this is amazing. Just by the loading animation and kind of seeing how the text flows up, I can clearly tell that you have good visual design. Crafting modern solutions through empathy and visual storytelling. This is also great. You're like communicating your clear value prop here. If you're not applying for internships or new grad positions, I wouldn't put this here. But if you are, that makes sense. Usually like people try to lowball you if they figure out you're a student. So if you're applying to like a startup maybe and trying to say you're a senior designer, if your skills are there, don't tell them you're a student. Okay, I can tell do you have some mobile design work? I'm not sure what this is. And if I'm hiring for a product design position, let's see. Storytelling. Okay, it's not clear whether you're applying for a UX design position or not, so I'm not sure. Maybe in the chat. What type of positions are you applying for?
Mostly product design, but
okay. Yeah, I think the key thing here is that as a recruiter, I need to know what type of designer you are. Like, are you a UX designer or visual, like a packaging designer, graphic designer? So this is really clear to me that, oh, you are mostly a UX designer, but then when I jump into here, I'm like, oh, maybe you do more graphic design. So yeah, that's just something to think of. Like maybe add a few, like one more project that's like, let's say web, to kind of really sell that idea. You can even add, it doesn't even need to be a clickable project. Like you can just add like different screens you worked on, or like yeah, like some featured work that's not clickable. But yeah, right off the bat, it looks great. I've maybe like customize these projects to be more relevant to the job you're applying for. And then for this, does it send me an email? Oh yeah, okay, cool, that's amazing. You can maybe add a link to your resume here. Oh no, you have it up top, I guess. I have to scroll all the way back up to go to your resume. So let's say I'm like kind of sold on like whether I want to talk to you. I don't know where to find your resume until I scroll up. So maybe make this menu sticky. So if I'm scrolling down here, I can still see it and I'm still enticed to click on the resume. Okay. Awesome. And then the last thing I'd say is check out the accessibility on this, because the only one I'm worried about is maybe this green on blue might not be super visible to some people. But yeah, other than that, it looks great. I can give more detailed feedback later since I already have the link. Let's open Ashley's. Nice. And this is kind of how fast recruiters would be scrolling through your presentation as well. So just FYI. Okay, so it looks like you have a lot of mobile design experience. I won't make it so small because I have to like zoom in to see what you did. And as a hiring manager, I don't want to click into this to see this. I want to kind of see your experience right there. Okay, yeah, so this is awesome. Like you have it right up in front, right up in the center, but ideally, I can see that just from your homepage. Do you have impact? Okay, another thing I'd add that's really key is the impact up top. Maybe if there's like some metrics you can add that people would care about, or like some key things that I can quickly skim. Like I don't want to read this whole thing to understand what the impact was. Let's see, news. That's cute. Yeah, I think the big thing on your homepage, it looks really well designed. Maybe highlight more of your work. And you don't need to add so much text over here. It just needs to be super skimmable where your work is front and center rather than getting the recruiter to do work by reading it. And for all the portfolios I'm reviewing, I'll send like detailed feedback in a Google Doc a little later. Oops, click on the same one. Oh, this is super nice. I really like this animation over here. One thing that I'd say is that you want to maybe optimize for stuff above the fold. So this is kind of the fold over here. And this is a lot of, I understand that this is a design choice, but it's like something really small. Maybe figure out like, is there something you can do that's highlighting your work as a designer up here, or highlighting your work as an illustrator up here. Okay, this is awesome. I can see what you did without having to click in. It kind of reminds me of this person's portfolio where they have it laid out like this. So I can, drag and see what they did without having to click in. But yeah, really nice design. If you're applying for a graphic design position, I would 100% get you on a call. So I'm not sure if you're applying for a product design position, I'd just say add more mobile design or web design work, but it just depends on the type of role you're going for. So Madison, what type of role?
Yeah, just graphic design, branding, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Then you're good to go. This looks great. The one thing I'd say about prioritizing these projects is that highlight the ones where you actually work with the client, or something that that reached a big audience or something where you had like a lot of big numbers. So you can kind of highlight that impact. But this looks great. Okay. Okay, this is great. I can see your web and mobile experience right off the bat. One thing I'd say is that this web page looks massive compared to this phone. So maybe make the phone a little bigger. Very small detail. But yeah, this looks amazing to me. Like as a recruiter, I want to see your work front and center. I want to be able to kind of skim it really quickly. So I'm probably not even gonna want to click into any of these to see what's happening. And it's really clear what type of role you're applying for. So that's great. Okay, one quick segue. So if you have a portfolio, I want you to think about how can you convey your skills in 0 clicks? Like what's the quickest way a recruiter can skim your content? So if you can kind of maybe do this on your own if you want to, or if you want, you can kind of sketch it out and feel free to send it to me for feedback. But yeah, I'm not sure how I can evaluate your sketches over a video call. But yeah, so it's something to think about. Okay, and if you don't have a portfolio, what's your portfolio MVP? Like what's the V1 prototype? Like what's the base layer that people need to see to be able to understand like what your skill set is? Also, just want to confirm you can see the slides now, right? Okay, cool. So the key thing here is that your portfolio will never be perfect. You should put yourself out there even if you're unsatisfied with the portfolio, because that's like the quickest way to just get the job. And once you start applying, it's going to take someone weeks to even see your portfolio. So just start applying. It's really rough out there. So the key is to just get it out. So some quick rapid fire tips. So designing with your end user in mind will help you get more interviews. But like, how do you know if you're even designing for the right needs? And one quick way to do that is watch people get critiqued. So a lot of people do like portfolio critiques on YouTube. So just Google like portfolio review or roast my portfolio, a lot of different series of that. So once you kind of watch them get critiqued by like a super senior designer, you kind of see what they're calling out. And then you can kind of see how you can optimize your portfolio based on their feedback. And I definitely recommend checking out ADP List, where you can kind of set up calls with other mentors to critique your portfolio. And a trick I use to get referrals is I schedule calls with people on ADP List who work at companies I want to work at. So then I say, okay, can you critique my work or kind of take a look at my case studies so they can get a quick view of your skill set. And then over the next few calls, you say, okay, I took your feedback, I made those changes. So you're showing them like, hey, I can take feedback, or I'm very receptive to what you're saying and I can improve as a designer. Then over a few sessions, you can ask them and say, hey, I saw an opening in your team. Would you be open to referring me or connecting me with someone? Or you can even say, hey, I saw your friend who works at this company. So that's kind of a way to get some referrals. So dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And just this means that let the recruiter judge your skill set, and don't introduce yourself as like a junior designer or like, hey, I'm a new designer, or I'm like super nervous about this. Like use words that you want them to associate with you. So when you're introducing yourself, don't downplay your skills, like let them judge it. And your portfolio isn't the end game. So don't stress out too much about your portfolio. Like work on your overall personal brand, storytelling, research the company. Like there's so many different processes that go into the whole interview process. So don't stress out too much about the portfolio. People are probably going to see it for like 2 minutes max. Showcase your skills the moment someone opens your website. Like if this is the only thing you take out from this presentation, is like, make sure that I can tell your skill set just by the homepage. Only showcase relevant projects. Like if your dream job is mobile, only showcase mobile projects. Or if it's web and mobile, make sure your case studies cover both. Just make sure it's like super, super relevant to what type of job you want. And make sure you're getting critiqued by experienced designers, like utilize ADP list, get mentored, and always answer the why and the so what. So like answering, so why should someone care that I did this, will help you frame your projects and your skills in a way that's more relevant to the recruiting team. And just remember, your portfolio will never be perfect. So we're always going to be wanting to update it. Here are a few resources, but while you're kind of looking at this, I'll answer a few questions in the chat.
I won't have to speak.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Henry, do you have a question? Okay, never mind. So there's a question in the chat. Do you remember putting the project website for front-end building in portfolio? Project website. I don't really understand the question. Do you remember? Ashley, can you understand it?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe they're asking if they should put in like a project where they like coded something like front end, like and designed it that way, even though it might not be pretty. Is it still relevant? You can correct me if I'm wrong though.
Yeah, if that's the question, then if you're not applying for like an engineering job, designers don't need to know that. So maybe utilize something that has a template in it, or a website where you can kind of showcase your accurate design skills rather than doing this, because recruiters honestly don't care if you coded it yourself. Like they want to see if you have the skills that are on the job description. And I promise you, on the job description, they're not going to ask you to make a website if you're applying for a product design position. So don't sweat about that. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about the recruiting process? Like, are you kind of nervous about the upcoming job search? Feel free to just post in the chat or unmute yourself. Oh yeah, the group you go to for referrals is ADP list, is this one, if you can see my mouse. I really like it because basically you can search for people based on company, location, all that. And you can also kind of say, hey, I want to chat with them these many days, and you don't need to cold reach out to them. You just get access to their calendar immediately. So it's a really easy way to get to like make connections with people who are really, really senior. And it matters to get a referral in the industry, because right now I'm in the recruiting process, and the only callbacks I've gotten is through a referral. Like all the ones that I've applied just online, I have not heard back. So a referral will at least guarantee that a human reads your resume, and that's all you can ask for. Okay, one question is that I am new to developing my personal brand. Where are places where we can find case studies to work on? Oh, that's a great question. Let me send this link out. I'll send this design doc out, but they basically I have a list of all the different places you can go to get some prompts. Let me find the shareable link. Copy. Everyone. So there's this Google Doc. Let me know if you can access it. This has like where you can do mentorship, skills development, skills to master as a designer, side projects. So if you come to like designer size inside projects and sharpen.design, they give you like prompts where you can kind of figure out like, okay, let me build this out and post it on my Dribble profile or whatever. Yeah, let me know if anyone can't access this. What do you think is the hardest part of UX recruiting process? What was difficult for you when you were starting your UX journey? I think the biggest like oxymoron is that you need to have experience to get the job, and you can't get a job without having experience. So the key thing there was like joining clubs in undergrad that let me work on client work, or like if you know a certain class in HCDE has client work, definitely take that class and say, hey, I partnered with this company. It was a consulting project and I worked with them for 1 quarter. This is what we did. So having like some real life client work is going to help you get that job. So maybe finding clubs on campus that let you do consulting. If there's like a tech consulting club that connects you to different companies, you can even use Fiverr to get clients. Maybe you start off by just doing websites. So I think the hardest part of the recruitment process was just having those projects. But in terms of the overall timeline, it takes a while. So once you're in the process, there are probably like 5 calls or 4 calls. And the last one is going to be a final round where they do like a 5-hour sit-down call where you're doing the UX whiteboarding challenge, app critique, portfolio presentation. So there's a lot of different assets you need to put together. So having a solid personal brand or like a solid story in your mind that you can always leverage for these interviews is going to help you out a lot. Let me send this YouTuber that I've been going to for my recent job search. She's amazing. She covers the overall recruiting process really well. Even Femke on Twitter, on YouTube covers that as well. I just sent that YouTuber's link. Do you have any other website? Oh, for design inspo, Dribbble and Behance might not always be the best, but the one I use is Awards, or I'll just send that link as well. Okay, so this link you can kind of filter it by like portfolio work or like client work, graphic design, whatever you want. And this is kind of the holy grail of like the top designers that I'd be recommending. But other than that, I think for design inspo, it helps to go through. Oh, another one you could use is growth.design. Growth. This website is great. They cover why someone, let me stop sharing that and go here instead. So yeah, over here, you can kind of toggle through different case studies that these companies did to kind of solve a very specific problem, to cover like, let's say, onboarding, retention, revenue, referral. And this will also give you an idea about what metrics senior designers care about. So these people are going to be the ones that are evaluating your skills as an intern. So if you can call their attention to like, hey, as a junior designer, I was able to convert users from X page to Y page, or I was able to help with retention or save the business some money. That stuff is going to really make a big impact. Do you recommend put link to Figma file in portfolio? I wouldn't recommend putting a link to your Figma file in your portfolio because that's extra work for me. Like highlight your like prototypes or mockups like in the portfolio itself. Like don't make me want to. I'm not going to click into it, so don't hide your work. But yeah, the other thing I was just going to say is that the whole process is like very, very long and challenging. So don't get disheartened if you don't make it through. It's not an indication of your skills. It could just be like something the company is doing. What platform do you recommend for mockups? Like to present them in a beautiful format? I'd say like Figma community has a lot of really free and nice templates that you could use to present your mockups. But other than that, there are, let me send this other link if I can find it. Found it. There's this one that I've seen people use, jitter.video. They have different devices you can pull. Yeah, if you just go to templates/devices, you'll find it. And then to record your work, you could use screen.studio to kind of record your prototypes. And this will make it seem like it's like you made it in After Effects, because it'll like zoom in and zoom out when you want to. And it'll follow your cursor around. Is it true that we should never use pure or white? Yeah, it is true that you never use pure white or pure black in your designs. It's just not standard practice. It's very harsh on the eyes. Like if you, actually, I'm not sure if all your zooms are in dark mode, but my zoom's in dark mode. And if you notice, like none of the backgrounds are dark, like true black. It just hurts the eye. Any other questions? Anything about like portfolios that didn't make sense to you?
I have another question actually. I've kind of heard like, I don't know if this is like super relevant, but do you think it's like helpful to have, some people have like resume pages instead of just a link to the resume? Do you think it's like helpful to have both, or is just like the link to your resume fine, like the PDF?
I think the like listing it out is something I've seen a lot of senior designers do. So it's kind of like a they use it as like, if I scroll through your work, their work kind of pops up. So it's an interactive element on the page. But if it's just listing out the same thing I'm seeing on your resume, it's probably not as useful. You definitely want to have a downloadable version though, so that the recruiter can share it within the team. So apart from that, you can list it out and maybe like toggle through it. If you go on awards, a lot of people have that design language where if I'm toggling through their work, I can kind of see like their mock-up pop up over here.
Okay, nice.
It's a nice to have. You don't really need it. Yeah. I don't even have an about section on my portfolio. Like I have one homepage and then case studies, and like that's been working. So they honestly just care about your work on there. For resumes, it doesn't matter if I'm using one column or two columns. I don't think it matters as long as the visual design is clean. One website that I'd recommend to check out, I'm sure you all have seen this, is Best Folios. Here's the link to that. So you can kind of filter by different companies or interns. So they've used like even 3 columns sometimes, but as long as it's clean and has good visual design, it's totally fine. And sometimes I recommend like having one ugly resume that you made in Word and one nice looking resume, so that you can use the ugly resume to apply for like ATS friendly, like applicant tracking system friendly jobs where you're just applying online. And then you use the beautiful one when you're talking directly to a recruiter or if you're applying to a referral, because most likely the beautiful one isn't friendly. Yeah, I can't hit Command F to find keywords there. But yeah, an example of using a lot of text on your resume, but still you having clean UI is this one. They have like 3 columns. It's really easy to skim it. Can you explain what you use for Jira? Oh, so Jira is for like if, let's say if you want to create a showreel, kind of similar to what that other designer did, where you're quickly showcasing your work in like a 2-minute video, or if you're in your case study, you want to kind of quickly showcase all the screens you made. I'd use it for that, or even on your homepage. Let's say like this particular mockup is kind of nice. Oops. It's called cascading screens. I can't really share the thing with you, but it's in the videos. Yeah. Let's say like you want to use this one. You could use this on your homepage. And then you could use this for the showreel. It just adds some like fun interactivity to it. Yeah. And you don't need to like make it in After Effects yourself. But yeah, portfolios that have interaction design, it elevates it to like the next level, like scroll animations, stuff like that. So if you want to take your work and like really stand out, you could definitely try that out. But yeah, if there's nothing else, oh, can you just on the website, you just showed for animation. Jira? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. And I found out about Jira from another student who's like applying to jobs right now. So a lot of people are using this. It's just like you're always trying to find hacks to make your portfolio making process much faster, because this is not, it shouldn't take up a lot of your time. Like you should be focusing on getting referrals and like getting that first call from your recruiter. Any questions about like the overall recruiting process? Like stuff people are worried about or stuff you need help with?
Okay, I have like a personal question, I guess. It's more of like the whiteboarding part of like the interview. I guess if you have any like recommendations for that, I guess specifically for like my situation, it's not really like a whiteboarding because there's not like another person there. It's like an async whiteboarding session, so it's like through HackerRank. So in that case, it was like showing like you're supposed to do like lo-fi wireframes, and you just have like a time limit. I guess like do you have any kind of advice on how to showcase that design process thoughtfully, and also how to show your skills even though it's a lo-fi kind of exercise?
Yeah, there's actually this book that covers a lot of it. It's called Oops, Solving Product Design Exercises, and they cover, I can send you like pictures from like their whiteboarding round, but this whole book just covers the design challenge. And there's like essentially, I think 3 different ways they can ask you to do it. One is like when someone else is there. The second one is kind of what you described, where they'll give you the challenge and then they say, oh, do it yourself for this much time and then present it to us. So there are different strategies on like how to present it and like what questions to ask and like how to stand out. So I can send that over.
Oh, please, that would be so helpful. What is the book name called again?
Oh my God, let me unblur my background.
Oh, product design exercise. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very helpful, very easy read. I bet you can find a free version online, or the UW library should have it. So yeah, I don't want you guys to pay for this. I got one question saying, what do you recommend to get referrals from and reach out to people with many years of experience? I've noticed that it doesn't matter where the referral is coming from, most likely. Like I've reached out to like my friends who are, let's say, L4 at a company that they're not like senior, and I've gotten callbacks from them. So I don't think it makes a huge difference, but if you go to ADP list and like search for people who are managers and form a relationship with them, they might have like more influential say. Like they could probably reach out to the hiring manager, or they could like personally add in a word for you. So I think that would be the big difference, whether going for a referral from someone who's more junior versus senior. But just getting a referral, it would be good enough. Like don't stress out too much about the level. Cool. If you all have any extra questions, like feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I can review your portfolio in depth, whatever you need. It's really rough out there, so don't stress out too much. You'll find a job.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gresshaa, again for coming, and thank you everyone else for joining. I hope that was helpful. I know I walked away with so many tips and helpful critiques that I will definitely take to my portfolio and also just the recruiting process in general. So I hope that was enjoyable for all of you guys. But yeah, I'll see you all at the next meeting. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.